5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi, Tribe. I'm Versavia, and welcome to Community Conversations. This is a place where we get to know you, our community, a bit better. Today, I have our wonderful double feminine NITE blast, play, consume, sleeps. We have a whopping 6 of them in our community, and I'm lucky enough to get 5 of them all together at the same time. This is going to be interesting. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Just to, I guess we'll go around in a circle so people know who you are. And just, I don't know, give us a little sensory about whatever you want to, where you're at, how, a little something without too much going into, I guess, a blaster lesson. So I have Bryan with a Y up in my top left corner, so we'll start with you.
Okay, I knew it. Damn it. Okay. So, yep, I'm Bryan. I'm 33 and I'm in Orlando. Let's see. I don't know what else to say, but yeah, I'm working.
How about what brought you to OPS?
Oh, okay, sure. That's a great one. So what brought me to OPS was I was, messing around with MBTI for like 7 years, trying to figure out myself and stuff like that. I thought I was an INTP for like the longest time. And then, just went with that, looking for answers. And then I ran into like a really tough life spot at work. Like everything just fell apart at work and my whole work life collapsed. And this led to like this 3 or 4 year search to really get into type. And then I encountered, David Chan's channel. And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. And then I got into that. And then, when I went the journey, did the video, got typed, and I'm like, oh, wow, everything makes sense now. So now I'm on the journey to growing more. And now I feel like I've got a path to go forward.
Cool. Okay, that's awesome. Then I have me, and you guys all know me, sort of. And then I have Bryan with a Y. I mean, with an I.
With an I, yeah. Yeah, I am Bryan, and the other Bryan with an I. And I'm a very artsy-fartsy guy. I work as a graphics designer, and I'm also a musician, and I do animation, and I sing, and I act silly. So anything art, I love it. And I'm a Christian. I got into Myers-Briggs stuff very similar to Bryan's story, where that my wife and I just love anything that helps communication or understanding why does the people tick. And even though my belief is that personality is not going to get behind all of that stuff, but I think the more that you can learn, the better about yourself. Especially definitely resonate with Dave's approach of it should be more like a diagnosis than something you're super stoked about. And no matter what system you're using, because of the idea of growing is really important to me, and getting out of anything that would be selfishness, I think is good. And I was following Dave Powers before he went dark. I was following his Myers-Briggs stuff, and then there was the silent period, and then
back in the days
rose up out of the ashes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very intriguing.
Okay. And you do, I mean, you haven't in a while, but you used to post those little comics, right? Guess which animal this is? Yeah, that's wonderful. I really enjoyed those.
I'll be doing more of them, I'm sure.
Okay, cool.
Come in and out.
Yeah. I'm going to go clockwise. So next up is Austin.
Hi, my name is Austin. I'm 28. I'm from Modesto, California. And the reason why I got into OPS, well, actually, I remember, I think it was the second week of classes, I landed on Dave's website, Objective Personality, and I saw that there's people that look the same, and they had them labeled as the same personality types. And that was really interesting for me. I thought it was maybe way beyond what MBTI is, because I've been studying MBTI for 8 years or something before that. And yeah, it was really cool. And then I'm like, hey, who's this Dave guy? And then I remember sending a message on the contact form on his site, and then we scheduled a call, and we scheduled a couple of them. And so it was really interesting to get to know what the whole system is. It was really foreign at that time, so it was really cool to get that insight. That's basically it. I don't know what else to say.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have Josh.
Hey guys, I am Joshua McCrae. I am 34 34 years old. I always forget. I'm like, okay, so I'm
Feminine
34.
sensory.
Yeah, that's right. I don't even respect it at all. I am from Denver, Colorado. I still live in Denver, Colorado. I moved back here. I got into OPS because I was into the Enneagram first. I have an identical twin brother, and he was really into the Enneagram. So I got into that. And then
Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. Roll
Sure.
back. You have an identical twin brother?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. We'll have to revisit that. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry. Cool.
his name's
Yeah,
John.
I didn't know that. Okay. Continue.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. And so he's actually an INTJ as well, but it's interesting, but we'll talk about it later.
Yes.
And so the way I found Dave was I got bored of the Enneagram. I felt like I've learned enough. So I wanted to find something, I wanted to dig into the Myers-Briggs because everybody knows it. I knew what it was. But then the first video I found when I started to learn Myers-Briggs was Dave's. And it just, and I just used my instinct was saying like, okay, like keep following this. This is something much better. And I followed it and I fell in love with it. And other than that, I am a musician as well. I was a national level bodybuilder up until kind of recently. What else do I do? Me and my twin, we've done some touring. I was trying to think what else. But yeah, I love all kinds of stuff like that. So anything with the mind and the body, I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist and a nutritionist. So anything with the mind and body, I'm obsessed with.
Cool. And then last but not least, we have Melissa, who I recently realized I actually met a year ago at a meetup in Portland and didn't even realize that you didn't put the 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, so I'm up in Portland. I'm a mother of 4 children. The oldest one's 16, so I'm super busy. Yeah, and also, surprisingly, I'm a professional musician too. I'm a pianist, and I also am a dance teacher too, and I work for Personality Hacker. I'm the certification coach for them, so I work teaching students from all over the world, like teaching them about profiling.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay,
it's
I'm gotta say, given that you're all double feminine, I'm surprised how many musicians are here. I'm kind of just curious about that. If anybody wants to expand on that, especially because it seems to be something that's really personal and big passion for you guys.
Yeah, I can start. Me and my twin, so we've been doing music since we were like little kids, and we actually recorded our first we wrote our first songs and recorded them actually in like 5th grade. And back then it was like cassette tapes. And we were handing out to little kids and stuff. And so we've always done it. And we've been doing it nonstop up until a few years ago. He got married, has kids. I got into bodybuilding, but I can play. I'm okay. I'm not like a great musician like on the instruments, but I would say I'm a good songwriter. So for me, music is very natural. It's very easy. It's very obvious what to do to me. It just comes very natural to me. I'm not sure if it's like that for them, but more the songwriting side more than the instruments. However, I can play piano, guitar, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool. What about Bryan or Melissa?
Yeah, I really love stories in general. So I mean, it's everything connected with my art. So even when I write albums, like I do professional writing, but even my personal projects, like I don't know if you've heard bands like Enigma, but I like to create songs where one track flows into the next. So if you were to listen to the whole album, it would feel like you're like listening to the soundtrack of a movie, even though it's conventional songs or even pop music, but it tells a story. And I think that might be some of the thread of like what's powering it underneath. And I think it's also possible that I think there's a lot of the double activated sensory. So there's a glass lizard-esque approach to this personality type where a lot of the INTJs will tend to be kind of nerdy. But this personality type ends up sometimes looking, like I said, artsy fartsy and kind of like a feely-esque.
More like an ESFP.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, like
it has the illusion of that at times. Yeah.
Yeah, for people who might not know, so your of all of your functions, your activation, even though you have NI at the top, your most activated function is SE, even though it's at the bottom, because your SE gets hit twice in in the play and then in the consume.
Right. So
Right. So you have
it's
that.
like and I think probably in the music arena, it'll be interesting to hear Melissa's thoughts too. Just like the compulsion to be involved in the sensory. And that doesn't always mean that it's going to be success either, but it's going to be, I think, especially since it's connected to play energy and stuff, it's like constantly coming back to that. So, and then you have like the visual learning too, if you're going to have that associated with it. There's just this constant testing and trying, and you don't run out of steam, right? Because of the play energy. So it's just, you keep at it until you figure out what you're wanting to achieve, you know?
Okay. Yeah. Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, I started playing piano as soon as I could touch a piano, you know, so as a very little kid. And then I trained classically my whole life, and, you know, just did various things, but my favorite thing to do has always been accompaniment. I love that. I love enhancing what someone else is doing. So if a soloist is singing and I can tell they're going to get kind of weak on a certain part, I'll speed up the tempo just a little bit in crescendo so it surprises them, and then they push out a little more air. Or like I try to find ways to kind of, like, you know, the classic mastermind from the backside.
Yeah, to support the tribe.
Yeah, and right now I do a lot of accompaniment at a ballet studio, and that's really exciting because I get to, like, the instructor just gives the combination, and I have to try to figure out what does she want from their body, and then the music I choose and the way I play it needs to direct them. Yeah.
Huh. So do you guys like, so I guess in terms of the modality, so the double feminine modality is tester and then visual in theory. Do you guys think in sounds? And then, you know, is your music a way of expressing that? Or is it more that you approach music like an NT puzzle to solve?
For me, it's like a NT puzzle more, and it's actually like blast for me. Like, so for example, it's not process. It's not like I'll have a song in my head. Every time I've had a song in my head, like if I have a really dope dream, as like, so in your dreams, like you have some of the dopest like songs if you're a songwriter, and then it's like so good, and I'll try to like wake up and do it, and it's not even close. So for me, it's just like the same as blast. It's just like I start playing something as soon as something sounds good within a few minutes. Lay that down, then start throwing something on top of it, lay that down. So that's my process. But as far as seeing sounds and stuff, not really for me in that sense.
I love that even in your language, you said seeing sounds, where like,
yeah.
I think it's, you know, so that some of that is coming through.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's funny.
When I'm creating, it's not necessarily, it's very similar to what Josh said. I've woken up with a dream of a story to write down, or a dream of a song. That's a different category of, like, it's not like I don't have moments where I'm like, I have this melody idea. But typically the approach is more of that I have an idea of a concept, a story, a feeling. That's what's solid. That's what's there to be put skin on it. And then the skinning of it, that's the bebopping. That's the, like, let's try this, let's try that. Are we getting closer to, it's more, music creating for me is more like trying to catch a dragon by the tail as it flies by than it is sketching the dragon as it is that I see it, you know. So
yeah.
So it sounds like there's a lot of the blast play energy that goes into your music.
Right. And I think there's a feedback right there, because there is some NI solidity there. Like, this is, like, I'll know it when I see it, right? This invisible thing that when it has some kind of, when we put skin on it, I'll see the outline of what I know it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And what's interesting is what he said, which is what I've been realizing subconsciously. Every song I've made, I'm trying to catch a deep emotion, and then I'm trying to intensify that emotion as soon as I kind of grasp it. So for me personally, it's about chasing an emotion, which is pretty interesting, considering my relationship with emotions. But yeah, so I don't know if that's similar, but I do chase emotion. As soon as I hear something, I know what direction it should go, kind of, and then I just kind of, it's not processed, but I know the direction with my NI. I know I'm going that way, and it's going to feel this way toward the end.
So it sounds like,
the same with what Melissa's talking about too. Like, she's hearing what's happening in a person, what they need. That is play energy. That's reacting right away. but there's still, but she still is having a main thrust of what she's already going after. It's not like she's listening and going, what do I feel like doing right now? Right? I mean, there's still a goal in mind, but the play energy is working along with that and just right away, okay, I see this happening, so we're going to correct. I see this, we're going to correct that way.
That's exactly right for me too.
So it sounds like it's this like one of the mechanisms through which you play around with triangulating your NI and your SE, where you have that SE loop of like, okay, here's some sensory. Oh, this is the NI thread I want to catch. Let me go and look at the sensory in that direction. And it's just like one of the, because NI and SE being at the poles, like our brain wakes up and lights up even more when we're able to triangulate the observer axis. And I'm like, I'm on the other side of that, where I'm an ESFP, but also a glass lizard. So I have SE at the top, but my NI is double activated. So I experience that from the other side, and usually when it's applied to my FI, not to TE.
That's interesting, because I'd imagine you probably have like you're, except for the energy part, I would think you'd have a similar approach.
I do actually. Like I'm not musical in any way. Not like I can't create musical content, but when I am in a creative mood, if I'm trying to create some kind of art or something like that, it is very much this like back and forth between going with the SE and the NI. Like I might have an NI, like I know what it is that I want, but I don't know. Let me go gather some more sensory, and then that'll help me lock it down.
Right.
That's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And then the only real difference you'd see typically is like someone with play last is just running out of steam. Otherwise, they would get there. Right.
Yep. Absolutely true. I'm curious, Austin, Bryan, like how does music, Bryan with a Y, sorry. How does music like, or does or doesn't pop up in your life?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first.
Or sound.
So I played clarinet back in marching band in high school.
Hey, so did I.
Oh, wait, what did you play?
Clarinet.
I played clarinet.
I know, that's crazy.
That's
hilarious. You already do?
Yeah, for like 5 years since 6th grade.
Wow.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Was that a choice you guys made, or was that something that your environment decided that you should play the clarinet?
I just picked an instrument, I think, for the most part. And all my friends would make fun of me. They're like, Josh playing the flute. But I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. It was fun.
I was really kind of popular playing the clarinet because like most of the flutes and clarinet players were girls and stuff. And but my mom actually got me interested into kind of playing the clarinet. She got me into it. So I did that up until like sophomore year of high school. But that was a lot of fun. That was just meeting people and doing that. But right now, I'm actually going into like DJing a little bit because I'm working with my friend's business. He does Korean pop music. He does like these big parties and stuff like in Europe. And now I'm doing some in the States. And I actually have this right next to me. It's just like a mixer.
Nice.
And so I've been playing with that a little bit.
That's great, Austin.
Yeah, I know.
Fun. You have to keep us apprised of your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm not very musically inclined, but it's kind of fun to play around a little bit, to like edit music a little bit. So I'm kind of going
Austin up there, DJing, dancing,
no,
in a marshmallow helmet.
I'm not sure because Josh and I talked about like dancing and stuff. Like we can't dance at all.
Oh, God.
Hey, speak for yourself, bro.
Yeah. But anyway, that's my story. So I'm done.
Bryan with a Y, anything to add on the musical topic?
When I heard the other Bryan with an I talking about music and just everybody being so musically inclined, I'm like, oh wow, well the last time I dealt with anything with music was high school. So I played classical music, so I was a viola player, and I ended up really liking that. I didn't stay with it. It was just I had never played an instrument prior to that, really, ever. And I felt I just had a natural talent for it. It was easy. And I just played by sound. I couldn't read music, still can't read music. So I just played it by ear. And
same with me.
really well.
I typically do well better that way.
Yeah.
Me. The sensory is too hard. I never even really understood. I just figured out by sound. I was like, this should sound like this. That's right.
Yeah. And I just felt the flow of it. And I was like, okay, cool. And I liked that viola was kind of like a middle instrument. I found like you just go with everybody else. Like violin was too annoying, and I really like cello. Cello sounds really nice, but it's a little too deep for me. But after that, really nothing else. It was just like, okay, that was fun, and then I moved on with my life. But now the only way music shows up is like in playlist selection and stuff like that. So I do chase that NI thread of a feeling. So it's like, okay, I have a feeling and I'm going to chase that. And for whatever reason, the music helps me just get in that zone, and there's something there. So I've got playlists on YouTube all over the place. Like I have so many, oh my God. But yeah, it's just to go chase a certain emotion down. And so it helps me, just get in that zone. So that's the only way it shows up for me. I've really never made music at all.
Okay.
Never.
Quick question. Did everybody feel like it was easy to pick up instruments and did everybody feel like music kind of came natural? I'm just kind of curious because I felt like it came very natural for me. For you too, Bryan. Melissa, yes. Other Bryan.
The only one. I'm with Austin. I'm like.
Well, that's interesting. So maybe
I don't feel the same way about
setup.
drawing. I don't know why. Drawing is like it's a pain in the butt every time I do it. It feels like I'm working hard at something.
Oh my God, I can't draw for shit.
No, I was like, oh God, no.
Like, and I have everyone convinced that like I'm so talented, but I'm not. It's just that I'm just so skilled because I just did the 1% growth thing.
You just kept working at it. Yeah.
I mean, that's what talent is.
Talent is every day. Why am I doing this?
Hard work.
Yeah. But with music, it's not like that. I don't know why.
I find that so interesting because I'm on the other side of it where like I have double masculine, right? So I should have my audio as my second modality, but I can't do music at all, but visual stuff comes fairly easily and naturally to me, like whether or not something visually complements each other and like arranging things in that way is easy. Whereas thinking in music or in sound is just a no-go for me.
Yeah, so that is interesting.
Maybe there's something else to the modality.
Yeah,
maybe
like
FI perhaps?
It's like we're all jumpers.
Yeah.
Or maybe it has something to do with activations.
Well, Josh and Austin have talked about this before too, is like, I think there's sometimes we like unknowingly expand the definition beyond what it is to the point where we're thinking it like it's looking a certain way beyond just the strict definition of it's like preference. What is distracting more than the other? Because like, you're going to have some people that are, and again, Josh and I have talked about this. I think Josh has gone after more of his SE than I have. I've gone after more of my maybe FI than he has. The value system of like what we care about, I don't know that that's so much what we want to make the definition of where we're landing. It's just more of the that gut visceral aspect of what's distracting and what is just the gut reaction of what you want to do, not necessarily what you end up doing, not necessarily what you're good at or not good at either. And I think that makes the system pretty complicated.
When you say distracting, do you mean like in terms of like sensory is distracting, or are you talking about in terms of like somebody who has an audio modality, sound is distracting?
Well, that would be both.
Okay.
Right. So it would be something like, is it possible in the same way that I could care about sensory, but be distracted by intuition? Maybe I care about sensory more than intuition, but I'm just naturally distracted by intuition. Is it the same way that someone cares about learning more visual than audio, but is distracted by the audio? And that's actually a problem learning because the audio is a distraction.
Okay. I got you. That's I think that's an interesting point. Excuse me. I also think that there is something there, like, well, actually, let's wrap up the modalities because we've been chatting for a little while, and there's other things that I do because I think this is an interesting topic, but we'll pause there for now, especially because I know people are being mindful of time.
I think I got another 10 minutes, by the way, so.
Okay. Cool. I am curious. So a lot of people mentioned that you, like, I think almost everyone was coming from MBTI or Enneagram or some other personality community. And I was wondering why OPS drew you instead of staying with that other community. Like, why is it interesting to have 512 types, or what is it about that what Dave and Shannon are doing that you've chosen to spend some of your precious time in this community versus others?
That's a good one.
I can tell you what I think. because all of our type, you know, we all got attracted to this for some reason, right? And so what I think is it's because we kind of know subconsciously, this is all subconscious, right? Not a conscious stuff. I think that we know that we have a void of self, but we also are for some reason, we're all interested in like human behavior. And I think that our brains are interested in a lot of things. Like we're like really gathering. Go ahead.
I actually think so. Evelyn and I just recorded an episode looking at the different axes and combinations. So we're calling, Socionics calls them quadras. So the SFP and NTJ quadra, I find that we are all very fascinated with human behavior. Something about how our animals line up with which, you know, like, so for example, I don't know, SF consume, that we're interested in human behavior for some reason.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting, actually, now that you say that. It does seem like that makes sense. But, and I also think that, like, why we're drawn to it, I just had it because we're the most forgetful type. Oh, yeah, okay. So I think that, also is because we get a lot of stimulation, like, in our brain, like, from things like this. And then with OPS, it gives us a lot of levels and depth to go through. So I can speak for myself. For me, it's super fun because I get that endorphin rush every time I learn something new that's applicable. So like I'm always learning, but it has to be something that has really good utility, or I'm not going to spend my time learning it, right? And I find that, you know, Myers-Briggs and all that stuff leaves you just a bit more curious because it doesn't explain enough. You're not aware of enough, and then OPS brings you to these different depths of levels to fully start understanding things for reals. And for me, that's just super exciting. And it's like a fun game that keeps going because it's not like I'll ever like have humans figured out. So for me, it's just a really, really fun game that I really enjoy. But that's just speaking for myself.
Anybody else want to jump in, agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree. It's definitely, man, I got into it for similar reasons. I was curious about human behavior. I wanted to know, like, there was just something I wasn't getting, right? Way back in the day, I was just like, I don't understand why people do or doing what they're doing. And I got curious about it. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, this can help me figure this out. And then it became about, okay, you know, how can I figure myself out? So I was using it to figure me out because I felt something. I just
start with the tribe and then go to yourself.
Yeah, right. So typical, right? I didn't know that at the time.
Actually, I think the same, Brian, now that I think about it. I think the same. I think I was for the tribe to understand them first and then me. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
And what I wanted though, it was also like, I mean, not to sound a little grubby here, but it was really to excel at work as well, because I wanted to move up, get promoted. I wanted to figure out how do I operate in this system and how do I win. So I needed some kind of predictive utility to be able to navigate something that I felt I was very aware I was very bad at.
Predictive utility. I feel like that sums up NITE.
yeah, pretty much.
Sounds pretty pretentious. I like it.
It is. It totally is. And you know, there is some, right? Like MBTI didn't go deep enough, but when I turned it inward on myself, I just kept finding that there was always this empty void, that there wasn't enough explanatory power to it. MBTI or Enneagram was really good for like, but Enneagram was also a little bit too scary in a lot of ways, because it really doesn't let you off the hook. So it really kicks your ass. So that one I've hopped in and out of, but
right.
As far as emotional work, but MBTI and the Jungian functions going into that, yep. It didn't explain enough. It was too much. I mean, this is an NT saying this, is just, you know, it got a little too nerdy to be useful. So it's just, you know, I was
kind
like,
of
okay.
feel that way about Socionics. I've looked at Socionics a couple of times and I can't get into it. And I think part of it, I feel like Socionics might speak TI, whereas I don't. Or maybe like it feels like Socionics is speaking a different language than I do.
Yeah. And I respect it to a degree. Like, I think Socionics is interesting, but when you get a little too deep, you're just like, you know what, whatever, man. It's like, how is this helping me in reality, right? So I wanted it to be as practical as possible. So OPS helps me narrow down the patterns to the very simple, easy to understand, not like just anecdotal behavior, but really like, okay, what pattern am I seeing here? It's like, oh, okay. So now I can kind of see, especially my own patterns. So now I'm seeing them everywhere and they're slapping me in the face all the time. So it's really helping me fix my own stuff that I've been neglecting for years. So
that's really cool. That's good to hear. I think it's probably a different approach behind what they're doing too than other systems.
Oh yeah, that's what attracted me to it.
And it's weird too. The irony is that Myers-Briggs without OPS and a lot like Enneagram, that's almost like they try to have too much explanatory power. Like, if you find your Myers-Briggs thing, this is, you love people and you're going to be a rock star and you hate cats.
This is
and
the single thing to define everything about you. It's like a horoscope.
And the irony is that OPS is like, no, we're not going to explain everything. Like, we're just going to explain like what we think is like that's why I was saying sometimes maybe we even know unknowingly or knowingly are like expanding the definition of OPS because we get excited about it because it does have so much explanatory power to go beyond even what it's saying. But I think because Dave and Shannon are trying to come up with very specific things that they mean, that's why it's working. Because it's just meaning like this or this first. We're not like, here's what your life looks like, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
so
that's
it's reduced, it's narrowed down enough that it's effective.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very practical.
You can talk about specific things, you know? And
Yeah.
I find it interesting. So often when I've asked people this question, one of the things that draws them, not so much to, partially to OPS, but to the community as well, is that the community, and this is one of the things that I definitely love about our community, is it's a very growth-minded community. And some of you guys mentioned that in the very beginning when we were chatting, and when you mentioned how you came to OPS, but nobody brought that up now. And I find it interesting, especially because that's more of a value statement rather than TE utility.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
I love the growth mindedness of it. That's actually what attracted me to Facebook.
You know what? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's by far, it's all kind of clumped in, you know, but that is by far the most important part of it for me. Is like all the growth, like to be able to see yourself and to be able to grow. I'm a personal development obsessed person. I love it. I love it. It gives you so much highs. I don't know how the world's not into it.
I agree.
and you
totally
get utility, and then whatever you couldn't do yesterday, you can do today, and you can help people, and you're so much more valuable. It's just amazing.
And I don't remember who mentioned it, but somebody mentioned that your type is more like a diagnosis, like whereas in MBTI it's this badge of honor, and in OPS it's a diagnosis. Like, no, this is where you're fucked up. Now go fix it.
Right.
Which can also mean sometimes like that. I think that's one of the reasons why some people really struggle with their type and accepting it, is because it's a shock to the system. Where like,
I think so.
It wasn't a shock.
It wasn't.
I was like, no, not at all. I got it, and I was like, yep, okay, cool. Because I was in that mode. I was like, okay, I came to this because I tried to type myself. Of course I did, because I thought it was so smart, right? And all I did was it was turtles all the way down. I just kept going in circles around the same thing, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm not getting this. Let me just get this done. And I did, and I was like, oh my God, because it was so funny because I had originally typed myself years and years and years ago in MBTI as an INTJ, which is hilarious how that came full circle. So I went INTJ, then I thought INTP for years, and ENTP because my extroverted side was starting to come out as I was getting more confident. And then I'm like, okay, and now I'm back to this. It's fantastic. It's great. So, but I get it how it works now. But it was one of those things where like, okay, I get it now. Now I need to get to work, right? Who do I study? How do I get better?
But that's the difference, because you're already ready to see. It's like you're willing to take in input and work on stuff. And I think by contrast, some of the people that have a harder time, they're not ready to really be honest with not just what they struggle with. I don't even think that's what you're saying. It's just that, are you ready to actually work on anything?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're not, it's harder to accept even any kind of type, I would think.
Yeah. I also think a big part of it is, well, it's a chicken and the egg kind of situation where I think for a lot of people, they question the validity of the method. Like the thing that drew me to OPS, that like the first time that I went to their website, I'm like, holy shit, this is brilliant. And it was because of the scientific method and that they stick to that objectivity. And I think a lot of people are kind of like, oh, well, no, they just know each other really well. And there's a lot of these other biases that come into play. And while, yes, there are biases, but when you look at the numbers and if you really understand how statistically improbable it is for two people to arrive at the same type, no matter how well they know each other, then whatever, like, I think that's where the objectivity comes in, because whatever biases I'm bringing into it, if my partner and I can't agree, then that will eventually be flushed out.
Yeah.
And the thing that's nutso about it, though, and I'll just do my little rant, is that the people that are naysaying it usually are still promoting MBTI and other systems and have no positive thing to support that. So I feel like they're inconsistent in their argument. It's inconsistent and unfair to say your method sucks and then to continue to just go down the MBTI train or the Enneagram train with no backing of that system. Because I just think that's a little bit hypocritical. And so if there's any meaningful critique of OPS, then I think, and I don't know that anyone can perfectly do this, but at least you would hope to have an attitude of agnostic about it, or at the very least, with the hope that you're going to create a positive statement about what you do think it is. Because otherwise, there's not a meaningful step forward to just be like, that's wrong because of this, and then to just keep holding on to something without doing that same kind of work that you're critiquing the other people for not doing.
I have a follow-up question.
And rant.
I want to see if Melissa or Austin, you guys have been kind of quiet, if you guys have anything to say on this.
Well, not directly with exactly what you guys are saying, but as far as the initial interest in OPS, I remember, really interestingly enough, like my first phone call with Dave, I mentioned to him that I was thinking through this scenario of like trying to build an entrepreneurs community and then having like OPS on the back end. And this is like in the second week of class, like I barely have even like, but I just saw like the potential, like some small things on the website. I was like, I want to have this on the back end of the community. I want to have the self-help stuff on the back end. And then people like want to make money online, whatever. That's the thing that gets them in the door. And so I am sort of organizing and sort of having the system like OPS and helping with the self-help, self-improvement type stuff. And it's just so interesting looking at my functions, looking at like what I know now about Blast and Play and all this stuff. And I was already talking through these things before they typed me, before I knew anything really. So anyway, yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and for me, I had been certified with Personality Hacker, and so we're supposed to interview a certain number of people, and I like kept going and going and going and interviewing and profiling so many people. And I kept seeing like, okay, this for sure is an INFJ and this other one for sure is an INFJ, and yet they're different flavors. But I started interviewing enough people that I was seeing flavors to the flavors and being like, no, okay, this is that type of INFJ and this is that type of INFJ. And I saw the patterns. And so when Dave and Shannon started talking about that, I was like, yes, that's right. They're breaking it down very specifically. Right. And it's very similar to what I see also with hundreds and hundreds of people under my belt that I've really studied carefully. And so that was really exciting to me, to see that. And I mean, not that I already discovered their system, it all matched up. but definitely I think we see
that there was more going on.
Yeah, there's more going on than just all INFJs should look exactly the same with the dreamy look into the distance. Like, it's like, no, there's like different flavors. And also for myself being an INTJ, I've always identified as an INTJ, almost, after the first month when everyone thinks they're an INFJ, I thought that I was an INFJ at first. But after that, I've always felt like an INTJ, and yet I'm a lot more maybe charismatic or energetic than most of the INTJs, than the stereotypes. And so people are like, are you sure you're not an ENFP? And I'm like, yeah.
Right. And for some reason, when somebody is extroverted, ENFP is what they have to be.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
So like kind of going off of Bryan's rant, but also I think that we were all kind of on board with like some of the pros and cons of OPS. What are some of the parts of the system that you think could use more attention or are standing on kind of tenuous ground?
More info.
Info.
More info. That goes without saying.
So essentially, like just like Dave and Shannon being energy dominant and shitting on the info all the time.
Yeah. There's. Yeah. It's hard to. Yeah. More sensory. More sensory. Yeah. More sensory. More how to really do like the pattern recognition. I know that a lot of it is kind of, sort of an intuitive process. No pun intended, but it's. You're gathering enough SE to do it, but it's kind of like, what's the method? What are the gotchas? Like, I know one of the recent videos they were focusing on hey, they're trying to slice down the board with key questions. It's like, I'm not trying to, I am trying to shortcut it, but in a meaningful way that gets you to the right answer faster. Instead of being like,
right. Yeah.
So we're trying to scale it here instead of being like, okay, well, go ahead and do 15 hours of a person. Okay, you lose. It's like, it doesn't scale. Especially if you want to spread it out and everything. So thinking about it as a thing that wants to spread and grow and go into science and stuff like that, or if you want to teach a robot to do it or something, which is probably where it's going if you get it into the genetic community, then you need to narrow it down to these key things that are so damn binary, so easy that it's just like, okay, it's brain dead simple.
So they have it narrowed down. So what you're saying is it's how do we take this NI concept and spot the SE when we're gathering that in? Like how to triangulate. That's where the friction is coming from. Because
even the questions in their doc still as specific they are, leave a lot open to interpretation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it needs to be broken down into like really stupid, tiny little statements that can be clearly understood by anyone that's taking the test. So if you take, it's like question 1 needs to be broken down into 20 questions. If it needs that, I mean.
So you're saying that it needs more SI?
It needs to be just sensory in general, of like getting very specific. Well, I guess it is some SI, but
more SI.
Specific about what you actually mean. How do you do that other than sensory to make it really clear to your whole audience? Because it's like we said, I mean, we still have arguments on Facebook about what things even mean.
And that shouldn't happen.
Well, that can be cleared up, right? With more, not just a more explanation, not just more like blabbing about it.
Right.
It's what Bryan's saying.
Like if you use the analogy that Dave likes to use, like the allegedly analogy, when it's like about, it's like cops catching robbers, right? So I work in a very, very SI job. I work with auditors and financial services. My God, it doesn't get more SI, like friggin' ISTJ than that, right? And when it comes to evidence, so I'm in the business of providing evidence and proving evidence. I used to have to gather this evidence. It was excruciating. But there's a way to make something so damn obvious to someone who has no idea what you're talking about. That's the level it needs to get to. And that is SI basically. So I know it's excruciating and it sucks, but it's even a really good, maybe, because that's the end point, but maybe a really good like bridge would be, what's the, I used to write instructional guides on how to, let's say, administer access for applications, right? So I work in IT as well. And I had to make it, when I had to write them, I had to really try to simulate that SI and make it so like in the military, they call it the Barney book. It's like so simple, a kid off the street can do it.
Right. You need a very specific instruction manual for how to type.
In sequence. So you don't make mistakes. You don't have to think. You just follow it and you go, because that's what it'll take to, let's say, teach a computer to do it, right? It's like computers are dumb. So it's like you have to assume the person's dumb.
I actually disagree with that statement, but I do think that we need an SI idiot-proof instruction manual.
Fair.
But I think you can write a machine learning algorithm that will just pick up the patterns because that's what they're really good at.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I would say that I kind of just disagree in general. Like conceptually, it sounds really great to have everything laid out, like specific definitions and like specific type of stuff to make it all make more sense. But I think that it's more or less a thing that you just got to put in a lot of reps and seeing the patterns play out and doing that every single week over a long period of time. I mean, I'm only saying this because I've been trying to type for like over a year and putting in a lot of hours every week and constantly seeing how other people are struggling around me too. And I just think that doing like, say, one celebrity a week as far as learning and training, it's not, I don't believe in the system really that much, to be honest with you. Like, I just think that there needs to be structured questions and structured answers, and then having that at scale with like different people, like, the people are waiting to be typed. And that's why I created a Facebook group that literally has this training education type system, because
sure,
it's just, I don't think it's clear definitions at all. I just think
I don't see that as being enmity with the other issue though, because I think that's another problem. That it's, you have, like, if I just start drawing and practice my drawing every day, but it's unguided and I don't know what I'm trying to prpractice, like, I'm not going to learn.
Got it.
And if I know all the information and I know exactly what to practice, but I don't practice, I'm not going to learn.
Well, I think
so
that like having the end destination of like, this is the type of the person, right? So beforehand, we're studying, we're practicing, and then we get the type back and we see, oh, this is their type. then that helps in learning, okay, well, actually, these are the patterns I was seeing wrong. These are the things I got to work on next time. So not jumping to those conclusions or those assumptions. Does that kind of make sense?
Well,
Totally.
I think of a really quick, practical, really easy, a practical scenario, because in theory, all this sounds good, but when we think about doing it, I think that one thing that could work is when they type people, right? I mean, when they get a type and everybody in the class is typing, I think if they had like some coaches or whatever to see the type that we typed them and then show what we were seeing and how we saw it wrong, to kind of go into that kind of stuff. So if they have like coaches, I think that could be a practical solution.
I think that gets at a point with the I think is the number one problem with the class is that there is no feedback loop between the students and the teachers.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how they, like, there's many different ways that you can go about building that in. And I think that's one potential way. But right now there is no like they have the weekly Q&As, which are a month removed because they record them so long, like so far in advance, but that's about the only process. There's no like there, as far as I know, they're not checking the docs that Austin's putting together of who's typed and
really helpful.
But if there was this iterative process, then they would get better at teaching and we would get better at learning.
Actual critique of the work that we're doing. Just be like, this is where you went wrong. You started thinking of it like this, and you should have been thinking of it like that. And without that, it's not guided enough. Why am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent, but like, for example, with Hannah Hart, right? No one in the class or no one in the group got her as like SI lead, right? And it's like, well, Dave saw her as SI lead, and that's what he taught. And they didn't really go over it over their weekly class video or whatever that they did. But it's like, it was so hard to kind of see that in her that, yeah, sure, they should probably have a feedback loop where they may check in with others. They maybe have content that explains Hannah's SI later or something. But it's just, it's so hard to prove sometimes that, like, I just think the whole system all together around the celebrities and us watching hours and hours of clips trying to find the parts, it's just, it's ineffective, it's inefficient, it wastes a lot of time.
Which brings us back to the SI sequence. It's like, what is the sequence?
One thing that,
how do you get there?
I would agree with that, but see, that then it would expose that even more. What Austin's saying, if that's really true, trying to critique someone, if that was really the problem, would expose it for what it is, so to speak, altogether. And that's not bad either.
No.
So if it works or if it doesn't work, offering more specific feedback would expose that, right? Is it either a problem with the teacher or a problem with the student when you actually have feedback like that? Because it's like you could have Austin's scenario where it's like Dave's telling us where we went wrong and it like totally doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Like, and that would be exposed.
So it was like, help us follow the chain of logic. You know, how did you arrive at this? Maybe that's just SI talking here because I'm so used to doing that out of habit, but it's like,
I think that's a good idea.
Well, the thing is, though, they only have so much bandwidth, and with the class they're already doing, it's like, it's impossible to kind of do that, right? Yeah. In a sense.
Well, yeah, they're bottlenecked, and they know that they're bottlenecked. They know that they're bottlenecked by it being just the two of them, which is why their number one priority right now is getting operators. But how do you get more operators? You get better at teaching people. Yeah.
I'm not trying to say it disparaging because, like,
of course,
they're limited in their resources. I'm not pointing fingers or getting all puffy about it. It's just the reality. It's like, it's what's missing. Like,
I thought I talked a lot. Bryan, you could chat, bro. Holy moly. I was thinking I was going to be the big talker. Holy moly.
Which Bryan are you talking about?
Oh, no, I for sure.
The blast is strong with this one.
He's been going hard the whole time. But yeah, no, I agree though. What's up, you? You could go ahead. Sorry.
There's one thing that I wanted to share. I actually think this week's class might be the one that I do it for. In psych research, one of the things that they do very often is in order to like SI the shit out of something. So for example, there is this guy, John Gottman, who has been studying relationships, marriages since the 80s. And how did he start studying it? He would have a couple come in and he would record them discussing something that's important to their relationship. And he would record each of their faces for about 15 minutes. And then afterwards, he had operators code every second or every 5 seconds of emotion using like well-known emotional coding, Ekman stuff. And based on that, look at the relationship of positive to negative, the ratio of positive to negative emotions. And based on that, with over 90% accuracy, he can predict whether a couple will still be together 15 years later, which is really impressive. But he went about it in a very SI way. You take this video, you break it down into 1 second, 5 second increments. So I'm gonna play around with this type of style of typing, of picking a video, something like, you know, Tom or Lewis House, someone that we know is like reliable content, and just one video, and in like 30-second or 1 minute increments. Okay, is this observer or is this decider? Is this sensory? Is this intuition? And so that, like, if everything is broken down into 1 minute increments, then hopefully if I show you this 1 minute increment, we can all agree that in this 1 minute increment, this is sensory over intuition or something like that. And like, I don't know, maybe it'll be a load of shit and it won't go anywhere. Or maybe it like, if we can break it down into small enough parts, it will go somewhere.
Well, do you guys also think that we're limited because it's just videos on YouTube for the most part? It's like, because think about like what people display. I know you can't really hide functions, but to me at least, it's like I'll see people on YouTube or whatever, and then when you get to know them, it's so much different that, you know. But my point is do you think that that we're just trying to type people online is the big issue, as opposed to like as not knowing them in person?
I think it depends on whether or not, like, if it's an interview that is an unscripted interview, then I think we can still see people's parts. You can still see the freakouts. But if you're typing someone's channel and they're always putting out curated content, then I think that's a really good point. Then you're not going to see their freakouts unless they choose to share them with you.
Right.
Do you guys think that's part of what's the challenge, I guess, is that we're all just seeing a couple clips of people or whatever? Or do you guys, because you guys are all typing like for real. I'm just like a fan, and I just like, oh, I think they're this.
I'm a fan too. I'm not doing the typing stuff.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah,
so you guys would know more than me.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know if the videos was limiting us or not.
Well, I personally think, like I mentioned before, just the videos are extremely limiting. They don't really help a whole lot, because I spend like hours and hours and hours trying to find certain answers in certain ways and certain parts and certain. I mean, I can create an environment where I'm asking specific questions to specific people, and then like through interviews, and then create that system repeated over and over and over and over, so I can learn pattern recognition within a controlled environment, not like an uncontrolled environment all over the place. It doesn't work very well at all. So.
I think you kind of bring up, I think having a common data set that everyone is working off of is really important, because if you see one video, I see another video, then how can we call that science? Like if the inputs are different.
Oh my goodness, yes.
All over the place. Yeah.
Yes.
I've mentioned that before, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think Melissa, you wanted to jump in with something?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say it, the thing is with that, I mean, especially as it pertains to people in an interview, and when they're like doing their personality, you know, their little Hannah Hart videos or whatever, I do think when people are just talking, if you listen to them enough, wherever you listen to them from, when they do their freakouts, they don't think they're freakouts. So they are still being, you know, themselves. If I told you, this is the truth, which it is the truth, that there's white flies in my garden right now, and they're taking over, and they're going to take over the whole city of Portland, and they're driving me crazy. And when I go outside, they get in my hair, and I'm freaking out. That's like my little freak out. But Dave and Shannon would be like, observer, huh? Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, I think yes, we're limited when we watch the YouTube videos, but still, if the right one is out there somewhere, the information will still be consistent. You know what I'm saying? Like if we're looking for the right thing. But I think it's way easier when you have a person, like when Austin does the interviews. It's so helpful because you can ask specific questions and calibrate. Like, wait, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
You know, clarify with people.
And I think when you actually know somebody in real life, it's the easiest, because you can see their tidal waves. You can see where they are leaving a void and where they are just oblivious.
Oh God, yeah. That comes a lot easier. That's why it's like you really do got to get to know people to type them. I keep realizing, it seems for me, you know, I'm not typing all crazy, but it seems you got to really get to know them. And then how much can you get to know someone on a video, it seems. But whatever it is, though, there's a gap between Dave and Shan and the community. So I think once they get operators, if they can make them coaches, or at least hire some coaches that type almost the same as Naomi's time, it can really help us. And then for people who want more, like us, right? Because we're info doms. So if you want more and to get really, really good, then they have these coaches to say, this is what you were seeing, but this is why, this is that stuff.
Or even like hiring.
Gotta head out, guys.
Okay.
Oh, Brian,
it was
see you,
really
buddy.
great chatting
See
with
you,
you,
Brian.
Brian.
Guys, love y'all. Bye.
See you, dude.
Bye.
See you, man.
I lost my train of thought.
Teachers, operators.
Yes.
So like while bringing somebody up to code, so to speak, as an operator, you can still hire someone to be, I don't know, a liaison with the tribe, with the community, to know what is it that the community needs. Okay, so they need this because, you know, if Dave and Shannon don't have the bandwidth to go and do that gathering, then that's okay. Export that responsibility to somebody else, but then act on it when they come to you with, hey, like we've had 2 or 3 people that we've typed that almost everyone came back with FE, but then Dave and Shannon came back with Savior MFI. And like, that is clearly a disconnect between how Dave and Shannon are teaching masculine FI and how we are learning FE.
Yes.
Right. So if they had that feedback, then they'd be like, okay, we need to give this a little more attention, but they don't know that that's something that we're having trouble with.
Yeah.
Well, Klaus sent an email to Dave, right? And he mentioned, hey, like all of us got this answer, and then you got this, and so that's happened before.
Yeah, but instead of it coming from us, I think it should be coming from them, because they're the teachers. They are the ones who are trying to teach their students this content.
Oh, I thought you were talking about as far as awareness, like them not being aware.
Well, yeah. But they're not taking responsibility for having that awareness.
Yeah, and collecting the data.
Yeah,
to be like,
exactly.
hey, where are people messing up? What's the error rates based on a function or something like that? You know, it's like,
that's like the number one thing that would be on my mind.
Yeah.
If you actually want to get better at all this stuff.
Yeah. Or spread the word. You know, it's like if you want to dominate MBTI, which this could easily can, in my opinion, but that's just me guessing here, right? But there's a need. Let's just collect the data, figure it out. You know what's
super interesting? Doing the advanced training group a little bit, I'm starting to feel like it's just intuition and sort of like asking questions to people to try to understand their type and stuff. I think that with, say, masculine versus feminine sensory, you can ask like 2 or 3 different questions and actually get that type probably with 90% accuracy or something. I mean, I think it's leading to that point where like with that part of the code. And I think with self versus tribe, I think too that there's a couple questions specifically that can be asked, to dial in that point.
Well, what if they're peacocking? What if they think that they're demons?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's why having like a couple questions to kind of corner it, right, from different angles. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm saying is I think there's a way to optimize them. That's what I'm working on, is asking those questions and figuring out what are the best questions to ask in order to define and figure out type. Yeah. Rather than spending billions of hours trying to figure out celebrities and like it's all over the place, right? It's like a system that's repeatable, that's easy for us to see these coins and then just scale that out and figure out for all the parts. It sounds great in theory, but I'm pretty sure with some of these parts that we can get there.
I just think before we even keep going down this rabbit hole, because there's going to be a million things, because I'm really big on like, and if you're going to bring a problem, then you should bring a solution too, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that there's so many things that we can keep going on forever. I think that just the number one thing we really know, and I would love to help somehow if I can. I would love to set it up somehow or go recruit people or whatever to do something to really actually contribute in that way. And I think that all of us probably can do something. Maybe we could all do a call later and try to help figure something out. And provide a solution to really help there, because there's a big disconnect there.
Yeah, some stopgap between, community member and expert, and then maybe even like somewhere a couple levels down from operator, because operator still sounds like operator sounds like hardcore. You were really like.
Well, when they talk about operators, they're talking about business partners. They want somebody who is in it and committed and is willing to take on the same responsibilities that Dave and Shannon have taken on. So yeah, there's operator, and then there's I guess business owner, and there's employee. There's board member, and then there's somebody who gets a paycheck.
Okay.
And is only there for the paycheck. And I think there's no, well, I mean, that's for them to figure out how they run their business.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
They can do the Josh route where I'll just hire people, I don't even care if they have experience or not, and just see how it goes.
They have been in some ways.
Really?
Last summer I remember them mentioning that they have hired a couple of people and they're like, oh, well, that's not working. Let's not do that again. But like, they're okay with that because they're energy dominant. So they're okay with that play and sleep, and they're shitting on the info. I'm still stuck on them shitting on the info.
Yeah, because we are.
We all are.
By the way, this whole conversation has been observer, as in like thing, and info everywhere.
Oh, that's so true.
I know, and they're probably looking at us like you guys are freaking nutcases.
Yeah,
Why
I
do
know,
you care
right?
so much?
So to shift gears a little bit, I am curious what it has been like for you guys to meet someone who is your type twin, and especially because Dave and Shannon so often say that when we meet someone who is our type twin, they're usually we don't like them, or like, no, I don't want to look at myself. Like it's a mirror of who we are, right? So what that has been like, but also just like getting to know each other and seeing the differences, like in general. Just tell me about what it's like meeting your twins. Anybody have a freak out?
Oh God, yeah. Okay, yeah. So, so what's interesting is, so you know the Enneagram, right? Bryan and I, by the way, are both 7s.
With an I or a Y?
Oh, B-Rye. Sorry.
Okay.
With the Y. So we're both 7. So when I met him, I was like, ooh, 7, fun, whatever. But what's interesting though is like, so first off, the experience of like meeting Austin has actually been life-changing, I'd say, like literally, because a couple of things. One, we we have the same like stimulation, same savior stuff, but we just have really, really good combos. But the big thing I think is because like he would trigger me a lot. And that was so good because it was a mirror. Like that's the best value I've ever got from anybody, I think, because it's a mirror. Because anytime we get triggered or we're mad at anyone, it's always us, right? It's always our internal, whatever, it's a mirror. And so everything that he did that triggered me, I would write it down. I have a whole journal of Austin triggers. Surprise, Austin.
Oh, wow.
No, it's not like he's triggering me like crazy. It's like 4 or 5 things. Cool. But
that's really amazing, though. That's really growth mindset, and that's really awesome.
Yeah.
To move towards it rather than away from it.
Definitely. Yes. Because there'd be times where we would just like be so frustrated with each other, but it was the best thing because I'd write it down, I'd chase it back, and I can always figure out the root. And then when I pull that weed, it seems like it has a domino effect because that one thing you're not dealing with that's triggering you is also being reflected in 100 different areas in your life. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so life just started getting better and better. And then I got less and less triggers. And then the best part is that the triggers was the distance between me and Austin, at least from my end. And so the more I deal with, I'm left with nothing but thinking Austin's like amazing, awesome dude. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm actually dealing with the triggers. I'm pulling the weeds. So for me, it's life-changing, like for reals. I've taken leaps and bounds since knowing Austin. So our relationship, I really, really value a lot.
It sounds like some really awesome sleep work too. Like looking at the known information to deal with the values and the emotions and
Yes. Yeah. So that on that side works. And then on the flip side, what also helps is that he loves the things that I love in this sense. So he's always down to go down some processing paths if we need a blast, because we're blasting a lot together, and that's how we process more than sleep. And so and he has so much, we all have a high energy and crazy, so we can just do it all day. He likes it just as much. So we really get far, and Austin knows a lot more about the OP stuff than me. So really great relationship. I really appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I want to just plug in. I really appreciate Josh sharing that. There's been one thing that has been super duper valuable. Well, there's been a lot of things, but one really big thing is Josh being an Enneagram type 7, and then also just really seeking that stimulus kind of the moment and being happy in the moment. Like I constantly sacrifice the moment for the future, right? I'm constantly thinking ahead, constantly like justifying it, like for other people, and not myself. And Josh has, focused a lot more on his own self and his own growth and those things. And I realized that like, I just need to be more attentive to my own needs and just be a little like selfish on some things, which is fine. and just being more happy in the moment, finding enjoyment, like playing music on my computer, right? Like going outside, like doing these small things just to be happy. Like it sounds so silly, but it's such a big deal. Like
it's like giving yourself permission to consume.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God's sake, yes.
Jesus Christ. Like it's really, really been helpful. And I know that's the direction which I need to go in. You know, just taking that massive action and just like keep on doing that. So yeah, and plus our talks, like just really going deep and seeing how controlling I am around things, you know, it's just
we see each other. As soon as he sees me do it, he can look at himself now and see him. That's what we've been doing that game a lot this whole time.
Meeting Austin and Josh. So when I first, said, hey guys, I got typed, and I talked with these guys like, for a couple of weeks, and it's like, all right, we ended up talking for like 5 hours each time. It was ridiculous. And it was wild.
I feel like anytime I talk to any of you guys, I can easily talk to you guys for 5 hours.
Yes.
Like I think actually
day,
Austin
baby.
and I, we might have talked for 5 hours before.
yeah.
I've done that with these two like multiple times. So that's just, I always think, okay, I'm going to go to bed. Nope, it's not happening. And
Not today, son.
Not today. And just meeting them has been wild because I thought I was the only one, right? So
Yes.
I've always been
feeling connected has also been valuable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's been huge because for me personally, I mean, I've told them my story. It's just like, I haven't had any friends for like 10 years, man. I went full monk mode, like just fully devoted to growth in my career. That's all I cared about. I mean, relationships and camaraderie went easy, but I never really invested, right? And it was just, I went full on, yep, just this, narrow down on this. And I paid for it badly, emotionally speaking. So it sucked. But meeting them, it's like I now see like, I've always been interested in like intra type differences. So it's like, oh wow, so Josh has really pushed hard on his FI. He's really out there, making an impact in his physical space. And then Austin's more intellectual than I am. So and then by comparison, I'm the most ascetic, it seems, with just like a million disciplines, caging this like, almost like I've built like this really restrictive, and Austin pointed this out, like I've built a lot of restrictions around myself. Like I've built this kind of combustion engine around this internal fire to kind of control it when I need it to. But it's kind of like this very tenuous kind of combustible thing. It's really not.
Yeah.
I went too hard on that. So I've been loosening up lately to be like, okay, look, when I go too hard on the discipline and the organize, everything falls apart. Like it'll just.
So I think my best friend is the ISTJ version of you guys, and she is exactly the same way. Like pretty much since I've known her, she's been all in on career, and she's like, yeah, in 10 years I can loosen that up. I'm like, in 10 years? What?
But I forgot to mention the best part really quick, just 10 seconds. I was gonna say, well, one, I noticed me and the Bryans, we got the same glasses. All of our faces,
I noticed
by the
that
way,
too.
I know. All of our faces have this like, whatever that is. We all kind of, especially me and all of us, we all kind of look alike, even Melissa too.
Oh yeah.
But the best part of all this is they've been doing their journey here. I've been doing my journey here. Austin been doing his journey here. And so now we see whatever they got. So it's like filling in the pieces and the holes of life. So it's like whatever they got good at, I know if I talk to them, I can pick it up quick because our brains are so similar. So I'm picking up like a lot of like the meditation stillness stuff from Bryan more. I've always been into it, but going on a deeper level now. Austin, I'm picking up the way he processes and sleeps and really can see the details more and stuff. So it's like whatever we all figured out so much in like the most practical ways. And I'm blown away by how creative these guys are when it comes to like, how did you be able to work around that problem or that function or whatever? We all are very creative in that sense. And so I take things from them all the time. I'm like, well, that's a quicker way to doing it than I was going the hard way. So let me do this. And so that kind of triangulation has been massively helpful. We just can't solve problems as well together, I think, because we're all the same. I would imagine, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't put us all at the same problem. That would be disaster.
Right. Exactly.
Don't ever do that.
No. Like, because conceptually, I mean, maybe in some problems, but it's like when we talk, though, we talk so high level. It's so great in a sense, not having to like really, really, really define and specifically explain things. Like we're super high level, jumping around all over the place because we're like play.
The speed.
And we're like, yeah, I got it. Cool. I'm with you, man. I'm vibing on this. Let's go.
Yeah, we can catch it really quick. Yeah, it's really great. It's just
you can see us doing it now, right? It's just like, I get what you're saying. Let's go. Yeah.
Well, I think I would argue that a lot of that has to do with speaking the same language. And I feel like that, like being in the same quadra as someone, so like SFP NTJ, right? Or like NFP and STJ, for example, they're in the same quadras, and they speak, they're on the same axes with their functions, so they speak the same languages. And when you speak the same, when you have the same functions as somebody else, I think a lot of translation, like you don't need to translate things, you can just be, and the other person understands, and it's a lot easier than like when I need to translate things into FETI, right? And anytime we're going about life, we're constantly trying to translate because most people aren't the same functions as us. And so when we do encounter somebody who's on the same axes as us, it's a little easier, and it's like, oh, I don't need to translate this. And then with how much you guys have in common, there's even less translating needed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But there's something I think about our brain speeds on the same wavelength too.
Okay.
It's like, so it's like, it's just a little bit quicker than that. But yes, but it still is the same thing. Like even with you, Vasavia, like I feel like us talking is like boom, boom, boom. But there's something, just a little bit more turned up quicker and jumpy. We can be more flighty and stuff. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah.
I agree with all that.
Yeah, I've been seeing you just nodding along.
Yeah, it's cool.
Have you been getting to know the guys as well?
Yeah, somewhat. I am so busy that it's hard for me to have time to get onto the calls. Yeah. But I think there's also like an element for me of just anyone in a community like this. I mean, I found it like with Personality Hacker too, like when you're with people who all really want to grow, and we're like, oh, let's learn about this. There's like it's a pretty narrow niche of people who like are super into this type of thing. And I think I'm surprised at how many relationships I formed, like how many people I genuinely enjoy spending time with.
Yes.
It's like in my everyday life, I don't run into a lot of people that I think like, I can get to know them more. Like usually I'm like, all right, I was patient with you. On to my next task.
Enough FEing for the day. Time to get back to the real things.
Yes. Let's get back to real business, please.
Yes. So it's been so wonderful to meet other people who, you know, want to grow and want to learn about this, and we'll talk about this thing for a long time with me. Like sometimes in everyday life, people will talk with me for like 10 minutes and say, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no one cares.
Right, they don't care. But it's cool to be around people who do care, but then also that extra level of being in the same quadrant.
Same type, yes. And me and B-Rai, like being the same Enneagram type is like crazy because we're really into a wide variety of stuff. And we know all the same people in the same place, all the personal development people, all the, he's in a meditation, all the things, the levels of the things that a 7 like loves, like we love variety of things. We're more gathery than Austin would be as a 5, a lot more gathery. So that's a very interesting thing because I know if I tell him anything, I'm like, I know he knows like who this person is, or he at least knows this concept of like all the things of life to give you the best quality of life. He's aware of them on some level, and he's tried it probably because we're with 7s, we test and try everything.
Oh my God.
Everything.
And I'll go like full on like hardcore. Like, look, I'm gonna do this to the letter, okay?
Yes.
And then if I crash and burn, then I know it didn't work.
That's
then I'll try it harder again, and then I'll say, okay, maybe it's not for me.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So
it's like the opposite for me, where I'm kind of like, I'll go and consume all the things, and then like after I've slept on it, I'll go and I'll expend the energy and I'll go do the thing. And the second I encounter any kind of problems with like my play energy, I'm like, oh, hold on a second. Let me retreat and sleep process and figure out why the fuck that didn't work. And it's exhausting. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like, for me with Play Last, I'm always like hitting the brakes and not really finishing things, not nearly as many things.
I'm learning to hit the brakes like that because I felt like I've always reflected on my failures pretty well, but like, let's say, you know, like I was talking to you earlier about programming, it's like that one, there's some special topics that are like, no, that's special. I'm
still unconquerable.
Yeah, unconquerable, or it's like I'm not. But obviously, it's like I'm afraid of processing it, right? So it's one of those where I don't want to find out.
I mean, what's there. You know? I have Save Your Sleep. I feel obligated to it, but I'm afraid of processing too. Like,
no
just
way!
Because,
wow.
Oh yeah, of course. Are you kidding me? That's what my depression's all about. Like, processing is not easy, no matter where it is in your stack. There's definitely challenges there. It's just I feel obligated to do it.
That's amazing.
With our demons, we don't.
Is like I feel like I resonate a lot with Melissa when she talks about like consulting and working with music and doing these things. And like, she's Enneagram type 5, like myself, like that's what we self-identify as. And then Bryan and Josh are type 7s, right? I see them two being very, very similar, like, a lot of ways. But I see me and Melissa being similar in other ways too, and it's explained through Enneagram, which is kind of interesting.
What
and
Enneagram type is Bryan with an I? Do you guys know?
Oh yeah, what was he, Austin? We've asked him on our channel.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But one really quick thing is me and B-Rye look alike, and then Austin and Melissa I feel like look alike.
Also, like Austin and Melissa, you guys have been quieter on this call.
Yeah.
They're always quieter. Like whenever I was on a call with Austin, it's like he's always like the.
I think in the spectrum, not quiet, but within the spectrum of your type.
Yes.
A little on the quieter side.
Yeah, me and Melissa are put on the brakes a lot more, and I think Bryan and Josh are put on just the gas.
Gas always.
Yeah.
Bryan a lot more balanced than me though in that sense. I'm just gas.
I'm not taking credit for that. I mean, maybe meditation sort of like that helped me stop, but my wife is the sleep obligator monster here. Like, oh my God. Oh my God.
That'll balance you, man.
So she puts on the brakes fast. Like I'll put on the gas. She can take it for like 5 minutes. She's like, and it's so jarring for me. So I had to learn to not get like offended by that. Be like, it's like, okay, I have to understand. Okay, that's too much for her. Let me tone down my voice volume. Let me go slower and just be like, okay. And then she needs a little bit, and then she's like, all right, I'm ready. So she can keep up with me for like 10 minutes or even longer if she's like doing something like passively, like whatever. But like she'll just play video games.
I see that dynamic between my sister and brother-in-law as well, where like my brother-in-law is constantly hitting the brakes, and my sister-in-law, she's blast play, and my brother-in-law is consume sleep. And she's always go, 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 go. And he's like, I need to take a nap.
Yes.
That's like
and it's, it causes some friction in their marriage sometimes.
Oh, we've worked through it.
So my twins need sleep actually.
Oh, we never talked about your twins.
So it's that same dynamic.
What is his type? Has he been officially typed?
Dave typed him, and I think Shan typed him too. So he is he's an INTJ, but he's the flip of us. So he is NIFI. He's both of his saviors are masculine, and both of his demons are feminine. And so then
he's visual.
What would that be? I don't know the math. I'm not as good.
Oh no, wait, no, he's also double feminine. If both of his saviors are masculine.
Yeah, double feminine.
Play consume. He's consumed last.
Yeah.
So he's double feminine, Dave.
Yeah.
What would that be like? Wow.
I think I'm living with one of those. I have a roommate who just moved in, and I got hit with so much NF hippie blast. Like it was NT blast, but the content was all NF hippie, and I was just like, what just happened?
Interesting. NT blast, NF hippie content.
Yeah.
So you said sleep blast play. You said
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's got to be interesting.
Wow.
So I want to be mindful of the time. We can keep chatting afterwards, but like finishing up the interview because we've been chatting for over an hour. Before we do that, does anybody have any channels or any personal projects that you would like to share with the audience before we close up?
Not me.
Austin and I do have a channel together. We are in the making of. We're very excited for when it releases. It's gonna be so sick. So I know everybody who loves Vasavia's channel is gonna love it too.
Okay, so you guys haven't launched yet.
We have not, but it's personality Q&As, personality type Q&As. Yeah. Sorry. And we are interviewing people in the community. So if you guys are interested, you just have to be objectively typed by Dave and Shan, but then definitely reach out to us and we'll get you on.
Cool. Well, as soon as you guys do go live, I'll make sure to include a link in here. Melissa, do you have anything? I think you're still with your kids.
I am still with my kids. Sorry, I keep going in and out.
No worries. That's okay.
Yeah, no, I don't have any personal channels. I mean, I work with Personality Hacker, so sometimes I have like interviews and things that pop up on YouTube, but nothing real official.
Okay. So if you want to get typed by Personality Hacker, ask for Melissa because she'll know ops as well.
Definitely, since all of you don't know your type at all.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. So thank you everyone for joining. And thank you audience, listener, for watching. Would love to know what you thought. We had quite a few things that we discussed here, so share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. So subscribe and like, and we'll see you next time. Bye.